Welcome to I Still Call It a Lariat, Legion of Lariat. This is another big episode. We, as I have said, are doing Ref Week. With me, as always, my tag team partner, Mr. Showtime, Michael Wright. He unfortunately missed the interview with Lane Rosario, but he has joined us with former ECW referee, one of the head trainers for varying wrestling schools, a damn handsome man, and someone who has kicked my ass more times than I can count, Mr. Jim Molineaux. How you doing today, Jim?
Good. How are you guys?
We're doing great. I know Showtime's over there living the dream because that's all he does.
You know me, I'm living the dream. Jim, thank you for joining us. This is so exciting.
Oh, no problem. It's great to be on.
Oh, man. As I said, you are pretty much best known for your work in ECW. For those of us in me and Showtime's age group, you had a big influence on us. Me and Showtime stood outside in the rain for 2.5 hours before one of the Asbury Park pay-per-views.
It was Living Dangerously, right?
Living Dangerously, the second Living Dangerously.
Okay.
And again, we wouldn't have traded it for anything. We got
fun fact about that one. I started the "We're Still Wet" chant.
He did start the "We're Still Wet" chant. I started the "We're Still Wet" chant, and then I'm sure it was planned ahead of time. But then Taz came out and did a false count anywhere because we were a bunch of crazy bastards. I think he called us. I believe crazy bastards that stood in the rain for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people who did that. People stood in the snow and
stood in the snow, stood in the rain. The what was it? The Cult of Extreme is what Heyman used to call it.
Yeah.
It was. They were mad people. Some of us were mad people, and then some of us were dumb enough to get into the business afterwards.
Hey, what can you do? There's no war.
Some of us are still dumb.
Yeah. This is my version of staying in the business. So, I've always wondered, actually, how did you get into the business? I never actually asked you that when I trained with you.
It started with Tri-State Wrestling Alliance, Joel Goodhart, which was the predecessor to ECW. I had started train before asking to join up with Joel. I was doing some work as a manager. I had a character and worked with a couple of different guys. And I approached Joel and said, hey, and at the time he had a school, also other than TWA promotion. And I approached him and I said, hey, working as a manager a little bit. We were friends. We knew each other. Working as a manager a little bit and wondering if you could use a manager. Really can't use a manager. We have Donnie Allen and we have Woman and we have Luna Vachon. Don't really need another manager, but I could use another referee. So he sold me on, everything with the school and how much it would be. Promised me, this is a rarity, promised me that the first year in the business I would make back what I put into my training. So, okay. So he said, think about it for a couple of days, give me a call back. Okay. So went and talked to my wife and said, and I'm 28 years old. I'm not a young guy starting out. Had a family and everything. And luckily still have the family. There's another unicorn in the wrestling business.
Right. One of the few.
Right. So, like I said, he said, call me in a couple of days, talk to my wife. And I called him back 10 minutes later and said, I'll see you Tuesday at the school with the money. And started training and trained for 8 weeks and they said, okay, we're going to give you your first match in public. And that's how it started. John Finnegan was my trainer at the school. The trainer for the wrestlers was Larry Winters. But John trained me as a referee.
Which is crazy because I feel like you and Finnegan are just linked because of the ECW stuff just throughout the tri-state area at that point, right?
Right.
I think I've seen you guys, not just on ECW, but I think I've seen you guys work like MLW shows and stuff like that too.
I've only worked one MLW show, but it was with John.
Yeah, I think it might have been that first one. I have an old DVD of Like
It was
first
the
MLW
one show he did
in
in New York.
Okay, it might be a different
at the
one
old
then.
Manhattan Center.
Okay.
Yeah, I've worked with John forever. And the little trivia is that John and I are the only two guys that were there from day one of ECW till the day Paulie closed the doors. We're the only two who never disappeared and came back. You know, it's like Sandman was there and left, went to WCW, came back. Mikey did the same thing, but yeah, we're the only two dopes to stick around.
It's called loyalty. Only ones to show it.
Some people call it stupidity.
Hey, listen, we got to spin it the right way sometimes.
Yeah. It's all about the wordage, the verbiage, if you will. Showtime. The next question is one of yours, actually, and that was I'll let you ask this one.
Yeah. So, well, I think Is it just next on the list?
Yeah.
Yep, cool. Usually when we do these, we always ask, like, when you have wrestlers come on, we ask them who their influences are. You could see, like, not influences as much, but maybe mentors, because you always see someone else's style come into a wrestling match. I thought it was a really unique question to see, kind of from you. Like, did you have mentors and influences to you while you were refereeing when you were out there, or did you try to make a style of your own? Did you think you had a style of your own?
No, I don't think I had a style of my own. John and I are very similar, so I think that our matching style probably trickles back to Dick Worley, who trained John. But John and I, we both believe you have to make it look real. That's all there is to it. It's got to look real to us. If it looks real to us, it's going to look real to the fans. Moves, passes it on and on and on, because we're the connection between what is going on and the fans, whether they're watching at home or whether they're live in the building. So yeah, probably Dick Worley, but for an influence for me to watch on TV was always Tommy Young, and watch Tommy Young. It's all real to him. He gets into arguments with Flair, gets into arguments with Cornette. It's he tries to take command of the ring. I shouldn't say command, but enforce the rules of the ring. And everybody's going to laugh, rules in ECW. But if you go back and watch, John and I get off the ropes, giving them a count in the corner, all that kind of, the usual stuff. Whether they listen to us or not is another story. But it's got to be real. It's the same with the wrestlers. They nowadays they kind of laugh at themselves. Let's go out there and have some fun and really be goofy and do some flips and stuff. No, how about if I smash you in the mouth so that it looks real, and everybody in the crowd goes, "Oh my God, he's killing him."
Yeah. So we talk about this a lot on the show, and I always say that you define the rules. It's like when you look at like a Marvel movie, Captain America has a certain set of rules that he follows in, and once he starts flying, you're like, this doesn't make any sense. So ECW, it did have rules. You established what they were, and when you enforce it, that's one of the biggest critiques that Steve and I have in the industry today is around not following the rules that you've set up. You don't always have to count somebody out if you're always going to not count somebody out.
No, there are ways to get around it. There are ways to do it.
It's one of my critiques of what people are touting as the greatest AEW match in the history of 5 years. I'm one of the only people who is bashing this Will Ospreay MJF match that just happened, and it comes down to the refereeing on this one, which is why I was so excited to have you on. Is they went into the crowd for 5 to 10 minutes with no count. Yeah, the ref went out there with them, and kind of how Showtime just said it is, if you establish that you're not going to count, okay, that's fine. You've set this precedent. Don't count anything then. But then, like 45 minutes into the match, all of a sudden he started counting them down while they were on the outside. I was like, but you didn't. This doesn't make any sense to me anymore. You didn't do it before, and you do it now. And I had another worker tell me it's kind of because, well, this is them letting them know that they're at that 45-minute point. I was like, yeah, but if you had done a little bit more to enforce the rules to begin with, I might buy this a little bit more.
Right. I mean, there were matches that I did. It was Taz and Dory Funk, and it was Shane and Dory Funk also, where we went through the building. But I followed them. I didn't stand in the ring and, okay, I'm waiting for them to come on back. Woo, woo, woo.
Yeah.
Hey guys, come on, get back in the ring. Come on, it's enough. Now put that chair down. You get away from the table. All that kind of stuff. We tried to keep some kind of control of the mayhem. But some referees nowadays don't even bother trying to do that. So I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah. Oh! You're telling me
referees of today.
I mean, you kind of described the next question I had on here, but do you have any favorite or memorable matches that, that you've refed or been a part of in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, I hate using the term favorite because
memorable. Then,
yeah, because I mean, I'll have favorites that are for me. Like there are certain moments in a match or something, or actually, they're like the BWO against the FBI because we did a ref dance off spot,
yes,
just for shits and giggles. But like I think looking at matches that were important to the company that I was involved in, specifically ECW that I was involved in. Are matches I always think of first. The triple threat match between Shane Douglas and Terry Funk and Sabu that went 60 minutes it was a time limit draw. That really put ECW on the map in the world of tape traders. Nobody had seen that before or heard of anything like that before. So tape traders from around the world were looking for that tape, and that tape trading was a huge thing at the time. So that put us on that map. So that got us in there. Getting the pay-per-view. Even though it wasn't the main event of the show, I did the match between Taz and Sabu, which was the match that was really built on, that the pay-per-view was built on. And that was a 2-year build because the two of them had a feud but never touched for 2 years. So that's what, even though the main event was Terry Funk winning the title, Sabu and Taz was what pushed us to the pay-per-view itself. Another one that got attention outside of the ECW realm was Malenko and Guerrero. Everybody talks about those matches. I don't care which one you pick; they're all great. John and I almost got into arguments about who was going to do the match that night. And we got to the point where, okay, I'll do it tonight, you do it tomorrow, and next week we'll flip flop again. But yeah, those two matches. But working with like doing you think of, as a referee, thinking about doing your first barbed wire match, or your first cage match, things like that. I guess it's same thinking for a wrestler, but those those are ones that I can remember the most.
Those are all awesome matches. I'm sorry, Showtime.
Now, go. Just want to build on that. Like, so for a referee in some of the matches you were kind of talking about, barbed wire match. I'm not quite sure how extreme of a match you've kind of been in. Has there ever been a match you've gotten kind of like nervous to referee? Like, the one that comes to mind is like an exploding ring match. But I don't know if you've ever worked one of those. But has there ever been something that you've been like nervous to ref?
The closest was probably the Funks against Public Enemy in a barbed wire match, no rope barbed wire match, because you don't know what the hell is going to go on when Terry Funk's in the ring, and there's like a glaze that goes over his eyes, and like a shark ready to attack, and you're like, oh, here we go, look out! And he used to throw these windmill punches that you would eventually get hit. I love Terry to death. He's one of my heroes. But yeah, that was kind of a scary match because that was also like the barbed wire breaks and you're afraid it's going to snap back at you. And Terry called for the chairs. You're like, oh no, here come the chairs again. Of course, in the arena, the fans through the chairs no matter what. But so there's always some kind of obstacle when you're dealing with items that tend to not cooperate sometimes.
Yeah, and I remember going into some of those shows and like they would just have people bringing in whatever. You just drop stuff in like a big rolling dumpster as you walked in, so you never knew what kind of weapons were going to be.
Well,
in there next.
Next to a lot of people don't know this. Next to the arena was a dollar store, and people would go and buy dollar frying pans and dollar cheese graters and things like that. Just walk through the dollar store and pick stuff up. And they would get thrown in the bin. I'm sure the guy who ran the dollar store would find out when we were back in town and load up on all of that kind of stuff.
Sure. My favorite was always the keyboards, because when you hit something with the keyboard, those keys would go flying.
Keys go flying all over, yeah.
Oh man, and anytime New Jack had a guitar or something too, because all of a sudden. I felt like it was one of Joey Styles' go-to lines too. It's like, oh, New Jack's about to serenade him. Whack.
Yeah, I got nailed with one of those once. It wasn't bad, except when he gets pulled off of you, because the wood is shredded, so it scrapes against you, and you're like,
So it's funny that, like you said, you have memorable matches and not necessarily favorites, but you're actually involved in, you telling me is one of my favorite stories in pro wrestling ever. And it was, I think it might have been the last match you ever got to do for Curt Hennig and Jerry Lawler.
Yeah.
And it was because I think you couldn't find Lawler, or Lawler wouldn't come in from signing autographs or something.
Lawler was there yet.
Yeah, it was something along those lines where Lawler just wasn't talking to somebody, and you're reffing the match. And I remember you walking up to Curt and saying, "Hey, we don't have a finish. I need a finish. What do you think we should do?" And Mr. Perfect Curt Hennig looks at you and goes, "How about this? We get to the point where Jerry's going to do his fire up. He pulls down that stupid fucking strap of his, and I fall down in laughter, and he pins me." And your exact words afterwards were, "We can't do that because I won't be able to make the count because I'm going to be laughing too hard." And I remember this is 20 years later. I remember that story because I've never wished I was in a locker room so badly in my life.
And then what happened was we actually went over, when we actually did go over the match, and it was, for some reason, we restarted the match, and Lawler pinned him real quick, 1, 2, 3, and he said, we're going over the match, and he said, okay, and afterwards raise his hand. You're going to raise his hand and run out, because I want to chase you. I'm like, okay. And he said, don't let me catch you. And I said, don't worry, you won't. And he goes, oh, that sounds like a challenge. And I'm like, oh, shit. I'm like, I know he's a river, and he's gonna run as fast as he can to catch me.
That's randomly my favorite rivalry of all times. Back from the AWA days when Lawler and Perfect went toe to toe with those matches. Mm-hmm. That was my favorite find in the tape trading days. We were at some show and I found that one, and I can't tell you how many times I've watched those matches back and forth.
Yeah. By the way, for any of the kids that are listening to this podcast, a VHS videotape you used to have to put into, they weren't discs and you couldn't get them digitally. You had to fight to try to find these sometimes. And there were people who actually fought over VHS tapes sometimes. Yeah. I had seen it. No, none of us have any close.
No.
Showtime, I think you're muted.
I'm all DVDs.
I had them out here recently. I can't find them right now.
I'm all DVDs.
There were some around here.
I still have some tapes up in my closet somewhere, but they're
I have two. I have two floating around. It's that one, and it's the Best of the Horsemen from back in the day. Because like my whole style was just ripped off from Ric Flair and from Mr. Perfect. I just tried to be as close to that as possible, and I thought everyone was happy.
So you were Cody Rhodes.
Essentially, we talk about that a lot. Like, essentially, if I did become famous and really stick with it, I probably would have turned out very similar to Cody. Speaking of some of these personalities, ECW's had some like insane people. I don't know the right way to say it, but you had some strong personalities. Let's call it that. In the backstage area. Can you give us some kind of glimpse of what like the locker room kind of felt like in some of those situations leading up? Nothing, no like stories you have to bury anybody or anything like that, but just it feels like a high intensity environment.
Everybody kind of sectioned off, and first of all, the stories of the drug use and everything, if it did happen, was often a corner or in the bathroom or somewhere where it wasn't out in the open for everyone to see. So don't necessarily believe all those stories that you hear, but everybody kind of factioned off. Taz and Bubba would play cards with like the Steiners. Sandman would have his crew. Sandman, we'd come into town and Sandman would go to the local 7-Eleven and get one of those styrofoam ice. What am I thinking?
Coolers.
Cooler. Yeah, I don't know why I could think of the word. And fills it up, but when he puts it down on the ground, plops it down, and of course it cracks. Now my shit's getting wet, so I go and move somewhere else. But yeah, everybody kind of factioned off and sit around and bullshit and rib each other and tell stories and whatnot. Depending on where you were and who you were with. Always in Philly, I was with John. John didn't travel all that much. He was smart enough to stick with a real job. And so we were in Philly. We're still, when we're together, ribbing guys, trying to make someone cry. But
it's all because of love.
Yeah, it's because I love you that I make you cry. But on the road, depending on who you rode with, that's usually who you kind of hung out with, or like I hang out with Jerry Lynn. We had a little group for a while of like me, Jerry Lynn, Lance Storm, Just Incredible. Dawn would be with us. Not that we all traveled together, but we get to the building, we'd all meet up, and most of the time they were kind of working with each other one way or the other. And I usually had their matches, so it's easy enough that just hang out and I know what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say that kind of sounds like the wrestling matches on the card, like
yeah.
the straight wrestling matches on the card. Because Justin was always pretty good about doing stuff like that, and then you said Lance Storm and Jerry Lynn, like they always put on clinics, basically. So basically, my question was going to piggyback off that, but mine was ECW really is really the Wild West it seemed to be, and I obviously people have embellished the stories a little bit and kind of like obviously Paul Heyman is who Paul Heyman is. He's possibly the greatest manager of all time. I still stick with Heenan, but he's creeping up there right now.
I'd argue Cornette, but
I think Cornette might. They're on my Mount Rushmore of managers right now. I don't even know who my fourth one is because I feel like they take.
I wouldn't put Paul on a Mount Rushmore of managers. Promoters or bookers, whatever he would consider he was doing at the time.
Oh man!
There was a great quote I found from him where he says, hands down, that Bobby's the greatest because because Paul's not a manager.
He's an advocate. He's an agent.
Exactly. He doesn't consider himself a manager. Yeah.
Paulie Dangerously was a manager. Paul Heyman is not.
Which Paulie Dangerously was kind of my intro to WCW back in the day. That was the first time I had ever gotten to watch, WCW was like 91, 92 when he was kind of feuding with Sting and that whole clip. So
Jim, we've talked a lot about ECW. I wanted to kind of switch a little bit over to the training stuff because, I really don't know this answer. I purposely didn't look it up ahead of time. But of the people that you've trained, like who's out there now that's big? Who do you think is kind of the most famous who really made it? And mostly, what were they like when they were babies, when they first came to you, that you started to kind of mold them up?
Probably number one would be Sheamus. But he didn't train with us for very long. He was on I guess the 6 month, I'm not exactly sure the time limit, but he was on a visa. And I was helping out at the Monster Factory. I'd gone to the Monster Factory after ECW shut down just to keep my juices going before I killed everyone from not doing anything in wrestling. So I was there, and he came to train. Like I said, he was on a limited visa, and I said, I think this is the best advice I gave him was go home. Your visa's about to run out. Go home. Because if you want to keep training and you want to work in the U.S., if you have visa problems, you're not going to get back in the country. So he did, and I remember Larry Sharp was mad at me. Oh my God, he wanted to kill me because he wasn't getting any more money out of Sheamus for training. But he ended up going back to Ireland and trained there and worked there. And I'm not sure what year it was, but they were the WWE or F, whatever they were at the time. I guess they were probably the WWE. Were coming to doing a tour of the UK, and he called me and he said, "Can you get me a tryout?" And I said, "Well, let me call." Tommy Dreamer was in the office at the time, so I called Dreamer and I said, "I got this Irish kid. He's over there in Ireland, and you guys are coming. He'd like to get a tryout." And I said, he's 6'3" or however tall he was, and 240 pounds, pretty solid, big guy. I think he should get a look. So they looked at him. They didn't take him. They came back the next year, but by then he was already in contact with the office, and of course Finley was there. So obviously the connection's there, and they took him that year. And then I don't know if he did. Did he do Florida, or did he go right to?
Was he Florida?
I don't think he did Ohio Valley or Florida. I think he may have gone right to the.
Either that, or it might have been when they were still doing Deep South for.
Maybe
for
yeah, I'm not sure, but he made it. Right now it's Damian Priest. When he first came in with us, he was kind of skinny. He's still kind of skinny, but he's put together now.
Yeah, he's lean now. He's lean. He's got that lean muscle. Yeah,
I still had some baby fat on it when he came to us.
Yeah, I remember being the guy that took the first South of Heaven.
Is that the sit-out choke slam?
The sit-out choke slam. Yeah. And I believe you're the one that came up with it.
Yeah,
hey, it'd be cool if you sat out with the choke slam.
I'm thinking, can you control a body if you're doing a choke slam and sitting out? And I just kept going like this all the time, like, I don't know. What would happen to the body of the person that's taking it? Well, let's find out.
Yeah, and who jumps in there?
Yeah, hey kid, come here.
I remember being a volunteer a lot of times.
Thanks for stepping up.
Hey, it still can't ever be worse than Jake and Nikki photos. Jake's got him up in a vertical suplex. I saw this in WrestleMania 2000. Threw him out into a powerbomb from a suplex. I'm not stuttering on that one. That was the exact. It was.
Yeah, a lot of moves were based on video games.
A lot of stuff was based on video games.
Before they actually looked good. This was when the video games looked horrible.
All the polygons.
But they were so much more fun to play.
Well, you can get, what is it? What do ECW? Anarchy Rules. You can
That's still right. Find I forgot. You're in Anarchy Rules.
Yeah. If you win the title as Rhino, you release my character.
I might have anarchy rules in my basement still.
But nothing to play it on.
No, I have all those systems just all floating around in boxes.
Oh, man. I was going to say, who else have... I'm trying to think of other people that kind of came up through the Monster Factory.
When I came to the Monster Factory, Tank Tolan was already there.
John
who was James Dick for SmackDown.
Yeah, for WWE.
And
then
Cliff Compton was there, who was Domino, Deuce Domino.
Yeah. He was Domino, right? He was Super Domino.
Yeah, he was Domino. Deuce was Jimmy Snuka Jr.
Yeah.
QT Marshall came through.
You got
was
QT
there.
Marshall now.
We had a lot of people who did really good on the indies, on the local indies. Cindy Rogers comes to mind. She had a great feud on the indies that not just they would just take the match and go to shows and do the match. They promoters would book the match, not the wrestlers, against Mercedes Martinez. They had a really good feud going that was picked up around the East Coast. Trying to think who else we had. Towards the end it was OTW at the time. We had Nick Camarado come in for a little while, who was part of AEW when it first started. Now he's kind of on and off. Trying to think who else we had that people would know. Like I said, a lot of the guys were really got a good name on the local indies. And I think a good majority of the people that I trained got to goals that they could be proud of. Well, not everybody's going to get to the W. You come in, and you think you're going to main event WrestleMania in 5 years. It doesn't happen. And you probably realize that the first day you're there. and your hopes, I shouldn't say your hopes, but your dream changes a little bit, and your goals become different. And I think whatever they got to, they were satisfied with what they got out of us, or what we gave to them.
I mean, obviously, with guys like Sheamus and Priest, you got world champions,
right?
You have the you had your finger in the pot, so to speak, of training them.
Yeah, we had a little bit to do with it. I'm not going to take all the credit.
Take all the credit. You're technically the world champion right now, Jim.
No, because you know why I don't take all the credit? Because you never stop learning. I still learn.
100%.
I mean, I find old stuff that I look at it on tape and I'm go, wow, nobody does that anymore. I'd like to see that or that would be a cool finish. Nobody does that kind of finish anymore.
That's one of my biggest things is so I think the most slept on move of all times is the slingshot suplex. Tully Blanchard used to do it. It was awesome. And for the life, like I did it on the Independence because I just thought it was the coolest move and it made so much like technical mental sense. Like everyone throws a suplex. This makes it significantly hit harder.
Yep.
And I, for the life of me, cannot understand why no one does it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anyone do it in forever. And like, that's just one of those moves that if you just watch a couple of these tapes or stuff, you'll find these like little nuanced moves that I think would pop a crowd like crazy.
Sure. Yeah. You can see a lot of things like that, at a show that's kind of family oriented. There are a lot of guys have that same perspective and they look at things and they go, wow, I could do that. And let's bring it back.
Yeah. Once it gets old enough, it's then yours. I created this. It's a brand new move. Came out yesterday.
Right.
I just came up with this move.
I'll tell you, back in the ring now, one of the matches I love reffing is there's a tag team match, and it's usually for the ISPW Tag Team Championship between Sent to Slaughter, which is Sean Donovan and Danny Moff, against the Now, Vic Delicious and Hale Collins. Oh, it's old school Horsemen against Rock and Roll Express. It's old school, Midnight Express against the Fantastics type of thing. Things that I'm like, ooh, brings a chill to you.
It's when wrestling was wrestling.
Right.
That's my biggest complaint.
And they get a pop now because it's something they haven't seen for 20 years. So the kids that are coming to the matches now are like, oh, I never saw that before. Yeah, because it makes sense.
People stopped doing it before you were alive.
Right.
Those tapes, they don't watch the grainy YouTube videos. Like I'll take a look. My dad sends me a lot of them too. These real deep cuts he'll send me, and I'm like, this is awesome. I've never seen this before, because it's like an actual square instead of like the landscape view, and black and white, super grainy. But they're fantastic. You really get some real good inspiration from some of those if you just kind of put the work in. Jim, I was wondering and stop me if I have this incorrect, but you were part of like the rebirth of ECW back when WWE brought it back, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Right.
Can you give me a little bit of insight in like how different that was? Because I mean, I know it ultimately didn't turn out the way it should have. There's tons of people that talk about how they brought it back for the wrong reason and didn't keep the heart of it alive. But like for you coming in the very beginning, when that first match kind of was ECW through it, like what was the biggest difference? Like where, like the difference between ECW and like ECWWE, I guess you can call it.
Yeah, you could tell the difference between the two from the two one night stands, and if you look at them and you can see exactly where they're going with that second one when it came along. The first one I really felt was our chance to say thank you to the fans. We're going to give you what you want. The second one was like, this is their vision of what we used to do. And we're like, nah, no, it's not. It was very different. I did one match in the second one night stand. In the first one, it was just ECW referees. In the second one, there were WWE referees. There was a lot more WWE involvement in the ring, where there really wasn't in the first one. If they were former ECW guys against each other. And it was just a different animal. I laugh because I say it's not my mom's ECW. It wasn't. My mom noticed the difference. She's like, I don't think this is what you guys used to do. And I'm like, it's not.
Yeah, it's definitely not.
And everything started changing that night. I never had a contract with the WWE, and their stories changed. Every day was a different story. Dreamer was the one who put it all together and made the phone calls and said, we're going to restart the company and WWE is going to own it, and we're going to be out on tour on our own, and we want you to be a part of it. Okay, great. Pay-per-view happens the next Tuesday night. We're in Trenton, New Jersey for the first taping and it was SmackDown and us. And Steven DeAngelis, the ring announcer that we used for the pay-per-view, Bob Artiste, wasn't going to come back. They met him at the door Tuesday and said, we don't need you. You can go home. Well, there's the first change. And then all along, their story changed from we want you for everything. Well, we want you for the shows that you can get to. Oh, here we go. Then it became, we'll call you for the shows that we need you or we want you for. And never got any phone calls. So it turned out to be like June and July. They were doing Philadelphia. They were there for the 4th of July at the Wells Fargo for I guess it was SmackDown and ECW. And then the night before, they were doing an ECW show at the arena. And this is again with the new WWE ECW lineup. And never got a call. And I was never one, and I'm still not really one, to call people and say, hey, do you need me? I'll reach out to promoters. Now I'll reach out to promoters and say, hey, I'm back reffing, and if you need me, here's my info. I'm not for anything specific. So I never called Dreamer or anyone to say, hey, do you need me for the arena? And I never went. Like I said, I've never wanted to go to a show and sit there and oh, maybe they'll use me. Maybe they'll use me. And I just said, I'm not doing it. And it got to the point where I'm like, you know what? I'm making more money. Believe it or not, I'm making more money outside of wrestling, owning my own business. And I'm home every night. So I just walked away. I never said thanks or to anybody, thanks for not offering me anything. And I just said, go ahead, give it to if you're going to offer a contract to someone, give it to whoever the next person is, because I'm not interested. Their contracts don't include insurance. It'd be nice to have insurance. Like I said, after you take away all the money that you're spending for gas and rental cars and hotels, because they don't pay for any of that, I came out making more money, my own courier service. So I was like, okay, that's it. And I was at, I guess we were still the Monster Factory then, when those pay-per-views happened. I'm not sure. But I was still stuck with the Monster Factory / OTW, because under the Monster Factory was running shows, but with no name to it. So Ed and I came up with Old Time Wrestling, because we wanted to do an older style show. Classic wrestling show. So we came
wrestling was wrestling.
Yes. So we came up with Old Time Wrestling, OTW. So there's a border between the two at one point, but I forget where I was with at that point with that. But I stuck with that.
That's cool. Well, speaking of old time wrestling and kind of where we are now, what about the wrestling industry or the product out there now? What excites you the most? Because I know that we criticize it a little bit here and there as we go. I think we're pretty generous to the wrestlers in general. It's usually like creative decisions that I think Steve and I are most critical on. Like, it doesn't make sense. It does make sense. Why would you do that? But what excites you the most right now, coming from where you started to now? Like, what's the best part of wrestling in your mind? Nothing. It's all garbage.
Yeah, there are bits and pieces that I like, but they have some kind of connection or reflection of old style wrestling, or they're people that I helped or know. Like, the booking's horrible for almost anything on television nowadays. The Bloodline is excellent, excellently written out and promoted, and I love what they're doing there. I know I'm going to get hate mail for this, but I hate the spooky shit. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Why all of a sudden, in the middle of a wrestling show, does the Addams Family TV show start? Who's controlling the smoke machines, and who's controlling the spooky lights? Gable laying in the middle of the floor like he's shot in the back of the head, like he's John F. Kennedy, and is wrestling the next week without any scars or anything.
It was a miracle.
It's just I don't understand it. I didn't understand
we're
it
on
when
the
it
same
was,
pages on this one.
I didn't understand it or like it when it was Bray Wyatt either. There's a burn mark in the middle of the ring. All right, well, that's the end of that guy. Whoops, he comes back. How the hell did that happen?
Well, I think from my point of view, I think the draw that'll always happen is you always want to redo the Undertaker, right? That was obviously the longest, one of the biggest characters of all times, and always had that hint of mysticism to it. And things that work, they always try to bring back, right? Like, if it worked once, it's going to work again. Let's figure it out.
It's the Horseman theory. They don't need you until they need you, right?
Yeah, I had no problem with the Wyatt family when they first started out doing the Cajun thing. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I like them as the Colt.
Right.
Like the regular Colt.
Right. But after that, you know, there still has to be some sense of reality to it. I might be the only person that believes that.
You don't want to see people teleporting in and out of the ring.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
So you've been a manager for a short time in your career. You've been a referee, you've been a trainer. What do you kind of take the most, I guess, joy out of the biggest joy out of? Was it, or did you have the most fun doing? Actually, was it reffing? Was it obviously you've been a ref the longest out of all of it? So
it's got to be the reffing. That's probably why I'm back doing it. I probably could have moved on to another wrestling school, training people, or at least helping out with the training or speaking up every once in a while when somebody does something stupid. But yeah, it's got to be the reffing. I mean, I got a lot of satisfaction, still get a lot of satisfaction out of seeing the guys that I helped in the ring and being successful and getting to where they want to be. That'll never go away. There's some pride involved in that, but I think I had more fun. Obviously, had more fun as a referee. No worries. I'm not the only adult in the room anymore.
I mean, that's fair.
So Jim, what brought you back? You took the break, but now you're back reffing. Mm-hmm. So what's the draw? Like, I know no one can quit the wrestling business, but
right. Well, that was it. Nobody quit the wrestling business, and I didn't want to be in charge anymore. When I finally did shut down OTW, an offer came along to ref, and I didn't really think about it. And they said, well, it was what it was the ring that I had. I sold to ECWA, company out of New Jersey, and when they were loading the ring up, the owner said, "Hey, would you be interested in working for us as a referee?" And I'm like, I don't know. And they said, "Well, our first show coming up is our Super 8, which is our big tournament they have every year. And John Finnegan works for us." I'm like, "All right, I'm in." That's all it took. Work with John again. And yeah, I mean, that day, it was like we had never been apart. He pulls up in front of the house, or my bag in, off we go. "Hey, did you hear about, just the road story started."
Go, Steve.
Is there anyone, obviously you've worked with varying legends at this point. Is there anyone left in your career that you hope, before you finally hang up the striped shirt, you hope to be able to work with?
You know what? I'd love to work with Priest or Sheamus. Whether it would register with them or not, I don't know. But to be able to work with somebody that I got somewhere that, maybe that's a way of saying thanks.
That's cool. I dig that.
Showtime,
what I was going to ask a second ago was you were talking about the road story started. Can you give us a good one?
The thing is, my road stories really stink, because when I drove in ECW, I rode with Paul's assistant. And everybody will remember Debbie Beaumont, who everyone remembers as the nasty ticket lady at the arena. But what the situation was I didn't have them. They didn't pay for a rental car for the guys, but they paid for rental car for office, and Debbie was office, but Debbie didn't have a license. Had a good license. Her license had been revoked or needed to be renewed, and she never did it. So I was her driver. So I got a free ride out of it. But we would always be the first ones at the building. We'd have to be their first one at the building so she could set up the tickets and everything. And we'd end up probably being the last ones there, because especially if it's pay night, she's the one writing out the checks for Paul. So a lot of the guys didn't want to stick around to be the last one to get, wait for everybody to get their checks at 3:00 in the morning. And nobody wanted to get there at, 5:00 in the afternoon or 4:00 in the afternoon, depending on what time we got there. So I don't have a lot. I'm trying to think. When ECW brought Nicole Bass in, because Paul had made the error of turning down China. And so, like, let's make up for the mistake, and we'll bring Nicole Bass in, who's one of Howard Stern's whack packers, the world's largest female bodybuilder, and not to speak poorly of the dead, but she was dumb as a stump. And so she needed a babysitter her first time in and everything. She didn't know how to get around or anything. So we're driving her, and we pull into. I think we were in Louisiana. We pull into a McDonald's, and thank God, I finally found the rock station. That's one thing I always looked for on the road. I need a rock station. I can't do country. I can't do talk. I need a rock station. So we finally found a classic rock station, and the song was Born to Be Wild. Get out of the car, and I shut the engine off. I shut the engine off, get out of the car, and close the door, and I can hear inside the car, Born to Be Wild. Her trying to sing. Well, the song had been off for 30 seconds, and she's still going along with it. And we just looked at each other like, oh my God, what are we going to do? We're going to go absolutely insane this weekend with her. But it really wasn't that bad.
Sure.
And she did sound like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Showtime, you got any more questions? Because I think
it's around that time that we love to, Jim, give you the floor. Want to make sure you had enough time. Like I said, we usually like to keep this to about an hour when we did the interviews. But we love this opportunity for you to tell everyone what you're up to, any shows you might be working, things you think they should check out, whatever it is. The floor is yours. You tell us what you got.
Well, if you're interested in shirts like this, and my EC Ref and W shirt and things like that, all mock shirts of other shirts to push the referee agenda. You can go to tpublic.com, and in the search put in Extreme Referee, and that'll bring up my shop. Like I said, EC Ref and W, Referee 123 instead of Austin 316. We have the Referee Club instead of the Bullet Club. Acknowledge your referee, and instead of the bamboo like they had in the original shirt, it's got barbed wire. So there are like 7 or 8 shirts on there you can check out. And otherwise, I have merchandise with me when I do appearances, doing conventions and look at reffing. Not just reffing. Actually, one company, SPO Wrestling, which is run by Johnny Cashmere, here in the Jersey area. I'm a manager, so that's kind of interesting. Never, finally got to fulfill that goal, and some things are starting to boil there. We're going to have some fun. And with company Dog, the Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators, which is another Jersey company. I'm their matchmaker, head of their matchmaking committee. In fact, they've got a couple shows coming up. I just want to mention them real quick. Is September the 28th. They're going to debut at Riverton, New Jersey at Sacred Heart Church. And in October the 18th, they're going to debut in Pennsville, New Jersey at the Pennsville Middle School. And this is the company that puts on family-oriented shows. Usually bring a guy or two in for those shows. I know, just go back here on my notes. the Riverton show in September. I think where is it? No, I think everything is on the second show. I'm sorry, the October 18th show. Spencer Slade from the NWA is going to be on the show, and Falaba is going to be on the show. I know in September, Tank Tolan's going to be there. We talked about Tank earlier.
Oh, cool.
So I've got Tank coming in for that. And like I said, it's a family-oriented show. It's a great show. You have a lot of fun. But I'm all over the place. I got let's see, I'm not going to mention them all. September 21st, I'm doing the Lehigh Valley Toy, Comic, and Game Con in Palmer, New Jersey. But this week, I am in Marysdale. I'm sorry, Morrisdale. See, I always mess it up, this name up. Morrisdale, PA, for Asylum Pro Wrestling. Before the show or event, whatever word term you use, certain people listen to the show, I'm going to say you said show, not event. So before the event, I'm going to do a referee seminar, and then work the matches that night. But you can go follow me on Twitter at Jim Molineaux, all one word, and you can catch up with my schedule there. It's all, New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, New York, Maryland, all that area. And like you said, I've been doing it for a while, and it's getting close to time to hanging up the boots. I've been fighting a couple of injuries over the last year, so starting to think about, maybe it is time.
All right, cool. Well, I don't think anyone should miss it. You should check it out. What we'll do is we'll put links to the shirts. I might have to acknowledge my ref, or I really liked Ref 123. That one. I
like the Ref 123. I might have to get the EC Ref in W.
Yeah, and it's all like the same font and look of the original shirts. What else did we have? We had a 5-star referee.
Yes.
Every just trying to get a little snippet for the referees.
It's great, but we'll have the link below on the YouTube channel at least, and we'll have your social handles so everyone can follow, and any of the links. If you give us some of the links for the show dates, we'll drop them in. Make it easy for everyone to check it out. We love for you guys to come out, support Jim. I know I'm going to try to stop by one or two of these as I'm in the New Jersey area. So I'll pop in one of these days, Jim.
There might be a chance that I fly up there at this point.
If you go to my Twitter account, it has my email address. If you're a promoter, or you want to bring me in for an event, whether it's to referee or manage or commentary, I've done that too. Or if you're, doing some sort of convention, I have no problem sitting around and signing autographs all day either.
Listen, TK, we know you listen, Mr. Khan, if you will. Hire Jim. Just do it. Like I just assume Tony Khan listens to every episode at this point.
If any place needed some help with the referees.
Okay, I gotta go, guys.
all of a sudden, Jim's not answering our calls anymore. It's
exactly.
So I'm sorry, we didn't mean to do this to you. But yeah, we will definitely include all your social media links, the links for the t-shirts in our description for the show below. As always, folks, our show descriptions will be our links and stuff for our social media will be in the description. Follow, like, subscribe. Go see Jim Referee. Go see everyone that's been friends of the show. Honestly, everyone's been really cool that's been coming on the show. Jim is no exception. My chest still hurts from 20 years ago with that thud chop. So,
and if you're watching this from Canada, say hello to Ed Atlas for us.
Say hello to Ed. Oh man!
And most importantly,
we might finally get that Canadian conglomerate that we've been looking for. Just can't get into Canada.
And most importantly, Jim, thank you so much for joining us.
Jim,
we really appreciate you having on. This means the world to us. I know our listeners love hearing from people out there. So thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you.
Fun time, guys.
Definitely.
Lots of fun. Folks, have a good night.